What's going on, guys? Back again with another video today. So to start off, I want to pick up where we left off with the Miata and compression test it. But before we do that, I kind of got a flat on my daily driver, so I'm going to steal those wheels because those are the only ones that I have that I think have a 5x100 bolt pattern on them, and hopefully put them on my Forester, and maybe I'll put a couple on this one just to see what it looks like, because I actually bought those wheels that are on my Forester for this car. And I'll deal with getting it repaired later. And then we can move on to compression testing the Miata and see what it looks like and see what the spark plugs look like. Because I've been kind of waiting to do that with you guys, but I've been a little bit not motivated. It's been kind of crummy weather, been kind of but whatever. So anyway, gonna go ahead and get started on that. Okay, so quick off-camera testing. The wheels that are on the RX-7, so those bad boys right there, they don't actually fit on the Forester. The lug pattern is probably like a 112 or something like that with a 114, and that's like Volkswagen spec because they're just a little bit off. They don't quite line up on the 5x100, which is what the Forester is. So that kind of leaves me without wheels. So I called Dalton, who bought 2 sets of my old wheels for the Forester, and he happens to still have them, and he's nice enough to let me borrow them until I can afford to replace the tires or buy another wheels with tires. You know how it works, car people. So anyway, while we wait for him to get off work and get home, because he drives like 2 hours for work every day, home and to work, I'm going to go ahead and compression test the motor here. So we're going to start with pulling out spark plugs, and then we're going to start labeling everything and do a dry compression test and then a wet compression test if we need to. So let's get started. On initial inspection, it looks like number 2 is the cleanest. This is the number 4 cylinder, and if you notice something, it is the only one with a very, very crushed spark top. So, or whatever this piece of the spark plug is, I forget what it's called, but like the little part where you gap it. It's crushed, and I didn't smash it on anything pulling it out, I don't think. So that leaves me a little concerned. It's also the most wet one, so number 4 is my concern. Number 1 through 3 are all a little wet, but that doesn't surprise me because the engine did flood a little bit the last time I tried to start it because it was on 3 cylinders. So being a little wet doesn't quite surprise me. This one is the concerning one. How did that happen? But then again, I also didn't gap them myself. I let Dalton do it, but I'm not blaming him because I trust him, trust his work. Okay, so got sidetracked and started searching online and found some cheap wheels. They're like OEM ones. Look like that. I think they'll work. Let me know what Subaru these are from. These are Subaru OEM wheels. If you are Subaru knowledge people, tell me. Okay, so picking up from where we left off yesterday, I just showed you guys the wheels that I picked up yesterday and put on last night, which it was dark out by the time I got to it, and then the wife got home and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I never got around to finishing the compression test on the Miata, and I really want to get that done. So I'm basically already all set up. I've pulled the relay for the fuel pump, so we're not going to inject any fuel into the cylinders while we're doing this. There's obviously no spark plugs to spark anything, so nothing's going to go off. The engine's not going to start. We're just going to crank it. I'm going to crank it, let it go through about 5 cycles for each cylinder. And we're going to do a dry test, and then we're going to move on and throw about a cap full of oil into each cylinder and do a wet test if we need to.
What are you whining about, little puppy? Hi. Hi. Oh, hi.
Hi. Oh, hi. Hi. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to do that. I've got my 2 helpers.
Got little Basil right there. Little Hankles just sleeping, basically.
Lemon dog. Anyway. So let's get you set up on a tripod. I'll show you the first one, and then I'll just give you the results for the rest of them, because I really can't see you guys just staring at a gauge the whole time while I do this, because it's a really repetitive process. But we need to find out what's going on with this car, which I have a feeling it's just that one spark plug that got crushed somehow. So I don't know why it got crushed. That has me a little concerned. So anyway, let's get started on this. Okay, so after the dry test, cylinders 1 and 2 were at 135 to probably about 140 psi on each one. The little leakage after I stopped on each one, which is just normal when you're doing a compression test. So about 140 to 135 ish. So those are pretty good numbers. Third cylinder looked great at about 145. It was a little higher than the rest. So that cylinder's looking really good. Number 4 is a little bit on the lower side, but it's not like anything that's going to be like the car's not going to run well because of it. It is a little low at about 125. So to read that, we have 135 for the first 2 cylinders, about 140 for the third cylinder, and about 125 for the fourth cylinder on a dry test. So now I'm going to go ahead and take about a cap full of oil and pour it down each cylinder as I go along, trying to check and see if we have if the loss of compression, or if we have any extra loss of compression through the rings. See how bad those are, see how much the compression gets bumped up from that. And if everything's good, the head should be really good, because the head is actually pretty much fresh to this block, as in I put it on last winter before I started this YouTube channel, like right before I started it. And I didn't drive this car this much this year, so it's probably got less than 1,000, maybe 2,000 miles on the head. I had it resurfaced. I sent it into the machine shop. They reseated all of the valves that needed to be reseated and cleaned it. And so the head should be good, so I'm not super concerned about this test. So that gives me the indication that the spark plug, for whatever reason, got crunched, which is still a little confusing. Maybe I smacked it on something coming out. Maybe I smacked it on something pulling it out, putting it back in. Didn't notice, which is very possible, and it really didn't show itself until it got fouled out and like the engine got flooded. So let's go ahead and run that wet test, get the results on that, and then go from there. And if you guys have made it this far in the video, I just want to go ahead and remind you guys to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave me a comment down below, ask me some questions. I'd like to start a conversation with some of you. I love chatting with you. I love getting comments. Love advice, love criticism if it's positive and I can actually grow from it. Starting to get back into this YouTube thing again. I took a little bit of a break, and I apologize for that, guys. Life's just crazy. Cars are really expensive. I have a house. That's my life. Anyway, let's keep moving forward. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's go find out what the wet test is. Okay, so just finished up the wet test and the dry test for the Miata, and basically the engine is mostly healthy. Cylinder 4 is a little bit lower than I'd like. I'd like it to be up a little bit higher, but using rule of thumb is everything is within about 10% of each other. So I'm not super mad. So to repeat the numbers that we got 135 in both PSI in both cylinders 1 and 2 on the dry test, 140 on cylinder 3 in the dry test, and 125 on cylinder 4. So like I said, that 125 is a little bit lower than the rest, but it's not that much lower that makes me a little concerned. The fourth cylinder in the Miatas is a common problem cylinder because it's the hot pocket of the engine with the traditional cooling system. I know that my car, before I purchased it, was driven spiritedly, track day type things. It had an SCCA logbook. It had a few events in the logbook, etc., etc. When I purchased it, it didn't have the coolant reroute that I did on it when I bought it. So what that does is it leaves the fourth cylinder, or the cylinder in the back, because the engine was originally a east-west engine, turned into a north-south engine, and Mazda, being Mazda, got lazy and cooled only the front of it, basically. So if you abuse it with the stock cooling setup, at least on the early gens, they had some cooling issues on the number 4 cylinder. Now, if you guys have an 01 up, they corrected some of that issue with a head gasket revised to reroute some of the cooling. It does some of the job. If you did want to do the cooling reroute, there's more information on that elsewhere, and I'm not going to get too far into that. You're welcome to ask me questions in the comments down below about it. I do know quite a bit about it because I've done it. I just don't have the parts to show you or explain things on. So, with that being said, the wet test pretty much just reconfirmed what the dry test is. My cylinder head's good because we saw about an equal gain across all the cylinders of about 15 to 10 psi across all cylinders. So it kind of tells me the head's still in good shape, and we're not leaking a lot of the head. Because pretty much doing a wet test compared to a dry test, what you're really testing there is you are testing the piston rings sealing. Now, if you see no extra compression, what you are realizing is that your head has some sort of bad valve seal. If you see extra compression, all that means is your piston rings are probably getting a little bit worn, and it's okay, it happens after a while, and your compression is just going to go down a little bit. It's not a big deal, it happens. This motor in my car has over 150,000 miles on it. It's original to this car, it's over 30 years old, it's had multiple owners, multiple track days, a lot of abuse, my horrible learning of tuning on it, my horrible learning of modifying cars on it. This motor has been well abused. I'm very happy with the situation it is in right now. Do I need to rebuild it? No, not right this second. At some point, maybe in a year or two, I will rebuild it or just get another one and make it something better, but that's a different story for a different time. For the moment, though, going back to the spark plugs that I showed you earlier in this video, we can see that we have about even distribution. This fourth spark plug, so going across it, 1, 2, and 3 all look about the same. A little black, which is pretty normal because the car was running extremely rich before it got tuned. These are the same exact spark plugs in it before and after it got tuned. This fourth spark plug, however, has oil and gasoline on it, is what it looks like. Now, if you look at the electrode and the tip, it actually has like no gap on it. Come on, focus camera. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, it's got like no gap on it compared to like this one. So I'm not certain if I smacked this, maybe like putting it into the cylinder head or something, and it didn't catch up with me until now that it's not igniting the thing or the fuel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to wipe these down real quick because I'm just curious to see if these spark plugs work well enough. If not, I do have another set that I'll throw in if that doesn't cause the issue. So I'm going to wipe these down, re-gap them all to 0.028, and throw them back in the car and see how she runs. Okay, so car's all hooked up, got the spark plugs back in, fuel injection relays plugged back in. We're going to try and start it, so this is the moment of truth to see how she acts. Let's try it. So, you're probably wondering, David, third outfit changed this video. Well, I forgot to film an intro, or not intro, outro. So, here it is. Thanks for watching. We found out my compression numbers. They were okay-ish. Ish-ish-ish? Okay-ish. Yep. Anyway, so I'm going to go back to editing this video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Ask me cool questions if you made it this far. I don't know. I hope you all had a great Christmas. Peace out. See you in the next one.